God, just thank you for this time of worship. Lord, God, help us to remember that whenever we're going through battles, whenever we're going through things in our life that we don't understand, maybe we're up against the wall and we just can't see the light. But God, we know it's there. We know on the other side of that mountain, there you are, God, and there's the promises that we can always stand on. So God, I pray that before we fight with words or before we fight with just fight, God, I just pray that we remember that our biggest weapon is our melody. Our biggest weapon is worship. So God, I pray that would be our prayer, that we want to praise you before our breakthrough. And God, I just thank you for everything that you're doing, everything you're going to do, and everything that you have in store for today. In Jesus' name, amen. Welcome. Guys, before you take a seat, just go ahead and turn to your neighbor and give them a high five. Tell them they look good, I don't know. Yeah, so, guys, I'm excited to be here. I hope you are too. So, hey guys, is there anyone who just likes to sleep in? Yeah, everyone, right? That's what I thought. So, well, I got some bad news. For those of you who like to sleep in, this Thursday, Y2s will be having a makeup class for anthropology, and yeah, that break, yeah, you don't have one. So you can kiss that sleep goodbye. But this next announcement, yeah, I know that was a mood killer, but this next announcement is exciting. This Wednesday, we are having pastoral chapel with none other than the one and only, my favorite, Pastor Jordy. Give it up. This is his first pastoral chapel, so let's make it special. Let's hype him up. I know everyone likes to hype people up in here, so let's make it special. Let's make it his best one. Let's make it the best one. So, with that being said, the schedule at the end of the week is we have City Hope Easter, and that's one of the biggest events here. So let's come ready with the right hearts, not to receive, but to give. Let's be the hands and feet of Jesus. And so listen to these times because they vary for each campus. So on Saturday, Malvern is 4:30 and 6. For Mobile, it's 4:30 and 6. For Foley, it's 4:30 and 6. Yeah. For Babynet, y'all don't have anything, so I don't know where y'all at. But Midtown, 6.
What's that supposed to mean?
And then for Sunday, Malvis, 8, 9:30, 11, and 12:30. Mobile, 8, 9:30, and 11. Foley, 8, 9:30, and 11. Babynet, 8, 9:30, and 11. See?
Yeah!
Y'all are significant. But Midtown is 9:30 and 11. So yeah, we have a very busy schedule ahead of us, so let's come with the right heart. Be ready. Yeah, after this last service, you're not released until your campus pastor releases you. And also we will not be having Home of Grace this week. So I'm not sure if y'all are sad or happy about that. But yeah, no Home of Grace. But let's take this. We do have a break on Monday and Tuesday. So let's do a solid like that. And but let's make sure you use this. Let's make sure you use this break wisely. Like our course projects, let's get them done. And I know a lot of people have probably procrastinated that, so let's get that done. And Also, check GroupMe because the course projects have been moved up. And if you haven't liked that message, maybe you should do that. I don't know. So, one last announcement. We're not going to be having movie night that was planned. I know it's tradition and we're breaking tradition. Sad, right? Maybe this is the only thing that Pastor Danny will cry about. I don't know.
Cry.
But yeah, we won't be having that. Pastor Danny has said that we already have a really busy week, and he didn't want to add anything to that. So just use that time wisely too. All right. So now for the thing we've all been waiting for. This next person is really just, gosh, when I think of her, she's awesome, and people say she's not nice, but I've seen the nice side of her. So I think she is nice. And so, she's very studious, and honestly, I don't think City Hook College would run as well as it does without her. Like the class set, like being set up, and like her always on top of things, telling, like delegating tasks to people and all that. I don't think it would. I'm sure Pastor Danny just loves this person. I know he does. But guys, can we just get on our feet and just be excited for Muckridge?
To a good start, so we can't get back on. Okay, so you know how last time I talked about my dog? I just wanted everyone to have like a quick update. She's doing great. She's so cute. I like to think of her as like Robert Morris thinks of the Holy Spirit. He says, he's not weird, he's my friend. And that's how I think of my dog. So she's great. Okay, so I'm going to start off with just like a little illustration. So I need Chad to come here, please. They're dating! Literally not funny. Okay, so I'm going to have Chad sing a song, and he wasn't really prepared, so I'm just going to tell him what it is and just try to see if he can do it. So I want him right now to sing Greater Things by Macro. Yeah, just do it. You can do it. I'll give you some encouragement Joseph gave me. He said, don't suck. Before I came over here. So don't suck. Guys, cheer for him. Don't suck!
I don't know this song.
Okay, you can go.
Yeah,
You sucked. I'm sorry. So, okay. Thank you. I still love you. Okay. So y'all are probably wondering why I embarrassed him like that. Like, what did he do to me this morning, right? You're like, why would you do that to someone you care about so much? So I want to start off with the kind of idea that I want to share with you guys, and something that I've really been learning, and I needed Chad to be embarrassed to kind of prove a point. And that is that it would be cruel for God to require us to sing before we have a song. Before he has given us the words and the melody to be able to sing an effective song. So I embarrassed him and I made him look silly. And this is kind of the same idea. God doesn't want that to happen to us, so he's going to prepare us. Like, think about how much practice City Hope worship does before they get on a platform. Like, Chad just started in Baby Net, and I went to the practice, right? They sang every song twice, and then went through a whole run-through, and then Sunday morning come and go through 2 whole more run-throughs. If that's not preparation, I don't know what else is. But then they were able to come up here and sing the songs that God had given them to sing. So we're all in ministry school, right? So if anyone doesn't know anything about King David's life, then I don't know what we've been learning. But, so we all know that he wrote majority of the Psalms. It says about 75, I don't know how accurate that is, got off the internet, so. But he wrote a lot of them, okay? Sorry, Pastor Danny. But do you think he could have written all these if God hadn't given him these songs? Because the Psalms are actually songs. They're meant to be sung. They were passed down through generations like that, through people singing them, and that's how they remembered them. So I want to look at a specific psalm right now, and since I go to View now, I use a real Bible. I'm religious now. So everyone, we're going to read from Psalms 145. I'll give you a second to flip there, even though I know, you guys probably don't have your Bible. Okay, so this is kind of long, but I want y'all to stick with me and just really try to listen to the words. And if you can pull it up, just try to read along with me because it'll make more sense. So this is a psalm of praise, a psalm of David. It says, I will exalt you, my God the King. I will praise your name forever and ever. Every day I will praise you and extol your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. His greatness no one can fathom. One generation commends your works to another. They tell of your mighty acts. They speak of the glorious splendor of your majesty, and I will meditate on your wonderful works. They tell of the power of your awesome works, and I will proclaim your great deeds. They celebrate your abundant goodness and joyfully sing of your righteousness. The Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and rich in love. The Lord is good to all. He has compassion on all he has made. All your works praise you, Lord. Your faithful people extol you. They tell of the glory of your kingdom and speak of your might, so that all people may know of your mighty acts and the glorious splendor of your kingdom. Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and your dominion endures through all generations. The Lord is trustworthy in all promises and faithful in all he does. The Lord upholds all who fall and lifts up all who are bowed down. The eyes of all look to you, and you give them their food at the proper time. You open your hand and satisfy the desires of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways and faithful in all he does. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth. He fulfills the desires of those who fear him. He hears their cry and saves him. The Lord watches over all who love him, but the wicked he will destroy. My mouth will speak in praise of the Lord. Let every creature praise his holy name forever and ever. So when you guys hear that and you think of David, you're not thinking of someone who's struggling. That doesn't sound like someone who's going through a hard time, who's super joyful and just praising the Lord in every single thing he's saying. But since we know David's story, we know that it has a lot of suffering in it. And I'm going to list just a few, but this doesn't even cover half of it. But he tended sheep alone. He probably had to fight off like bears and wolves and whatever else from the Wizard of Oz. I don't remember that saying. But he was all alone. And then when they came to anoint one of his brothers, his dad didn't even call him in to be an option. I don't know about y'all, but that definitely speaks to me. I wouldn't want my earthly father to treat me like that. And then King Saul, who was not only his king, but his father-in-law, wanted to chase him down and kill him. And then his son, later on, wanted to kill him. So this is just like a little glimpse into every single bit of suffering that David went through. But through it all, David used his songs to glorify God. God gives us these songs so that we're able to brag on him. And I think sometimes we forget how easy it is to complain or talk about like what's going wrong rather than to brag on God. Because I don't know, I think about it like this, okay? Pastor Danny always says, don't get tired. But when you realize the why behind that, it makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of us have heard him say that. It's when Pastor Danny and Tricia say, you know, when people ask you about City Hope College, what is it that you're saying? Is it the first thing out your mouth saying, oh, I'm tired? Like yesterday morning, Cassie and I had to be there at 5:45 to set the worship center, okay? And when people asked us how our morning was going, obviously we're like, you know, I'm a little tired today. But if we didn't do that, the 2 people that got saved in the 8:30 wouldn't have been able to do that. So that is not the heart we want to have behind the suffering. Like, yes, I suffered. I had to get up early. Austin, I don't like getting up early. I'm going to cry about Thursday morning later. So I think David is a perfect example that God's calling us to do the opposite in our words and in our songs. He's calling us to glorify him and what we have to say through what we've gone through. And I don't want you to think that God gives us these sufferings. That's not the way God gives us these songs. He doesn't place this suffering in your life to glorify himself through it. He's able to glorify himself through your suffering and then give you that song. Okay, so God has delivered us all from something or we wouldn't be here. I think a lot of us, we weren't just living some great life and we're like, I'm so great, I'm just going to go to City Hope College to keep being great. A lot of us, right before we came here, we were going through something really hard, and that's partly why we wanted to come here, is so we could help other people when they were going through the same type of things. So God has given us these songs for a purpose, and we must sing them. And since God has brought us here through that suffering, we have a point of victory to go back to. God has given us these songs to remember his goodness, to be able to fight from this place. Because David's strength didn't stop once he was king or once he dealt with his son or dealt with Saul. He still had continual suffering, but he was able to look back and say, guess what? I used to be a shepherd, and that was terrible. I had to be all alone in the wilderness. That seems terrible. Garrett and them went camping. That sounded terrible. They slept in Eno. But he was able to keep looking back to that moment in his life and say, guess what? I got through that, so I can get through this. And each time he suffered, it brought him closer and closer to God, because each time he was able to learn a new aspect of God. He was able to learn forgiveness through his sin with Bathsheba. He was able to learn the fatherly love that God gave him in the wilderness that he didn't get from Saul or even his own father. So each song reminded him of God's faithfulness. And the main reason I wanted to speak about this is because this is something that I've been personally learning and having to deal with. And I'm going to kind of explain this story, so forgive me if I forget parts. I want to get it right so you guys understand the impact of it. So a lot of you know I went to Alabama. I don't really care about saying it, but I laugh about it now, but when I look back on it, it was actually really terrible. I was not living in any way that was joyful, and I look back now and I'm like, I thought I was happy, but there's no way anyone can be happy living like that. So I have kind of looked at it like the story of the prodigal son. I left home as soon as I could. I took all my dad's money, which he's never going to forget, and nothing came out of it, so sorry about that, Dad. And I ran away from home as soon as possible. Not because it was really anything bad. I just thought I knew everything and wanted to live my life how I wanted to live my life. So it's kind of funny that God has been using this story a lot, in my life and a lot of ours, because Pastor Danny preached it at View, and then Pastor Trey preached it on Sunday, and then I've just been listening to podcasts and they're preaching about it too. So all these different aspects, God has reminded me that that's where I came from. So the first couple days of spring break, something really terrible happened in my life. And it was kind of a huge blow. It was kind of one of those moments where I had to really rely on God to even do ministry. It's probably one of the hardest times I've ever had to do ministry. And so Pastor Danny, like I said, preached on the prodigal son. And afterwards, there was a girl who I had met a couple times because she was in my small group, but I didn't know her super well. It was kind of weird. Obviously, it was from God, but I talked to her for almost the whole beginning of the service just because I noticed she came in alone, and I kind of got to know her a little better. So afterwards, when she heard Pastor Danny explain how God was welcoming her back with open arms, she couldn't stop crying. Like, she could not even get the words out, and all she could say to me was, "I'm the prodigal son." And God kind of used this to remind me of a couple things. First of all, that I could glorify him in this moment because I was once there too. So he gave me that song to sing to her, because if that had never happened to me, I would have never been able to say, "Hey, I know what you're doing or what you're going through, and look where I am now." Not in a prideful way, but look what God has brought me through. Look at the true joy I now display. And God also used it to remind me of that place, because the thing that I was going through, I needed to be reminded that God would bring me through something again. And I think it's so crazy that God places these people and these stories in our lives, and we can look at it and just so easily be like, why, God? I know I'm like the first one to be cynical and be like, well, why would God do that if he meant this? Or this isn't my purpose. This couldn't possibly be a part of my story. My story's the best. My story's great. My story doesn't have suffering. But some of the greatest stories out there have the most suffering, and it's because they've chosen to allow God to turn their suffering into a song and to give them the words they needed. And I think it's just like so God and so amazing that Aaliyah, I've literally never heard you sing that amazing. And you were singing, "I will sing." You were saying, "I will sing this song." And I think it's partly because of everything you've been through that you're now able to sing your song. So I want to remind you guys today that we all have a song to sing. And I want to remind you of everything you've been brought through this moment, and let it carry you on. Because as much as what I've been going through sucks, it's also probably the closest I've ever been to God. It's probably the most I've ever wanted to walk in my calling and ever been able to, because I'm allowing God to move in me. So I know I made Chad come up here. I actually did tell him the song so he could practice. I just told him to look stupid, so thank you, Chad. So he's actually going to sing this song, and I think it just really relates to David, and the kind of message I want to convey is that we have a song. And you can either come up here and worship, you can go to someone who you think needs prayer or thinks needs to hear something you have to say or you've been through, and you can help them get through it. Or you can just have your own quiet time with God and ask him, what are you wanting me to sing? What suffering have I not given over to you to turn into something great? To turn into 75 books of the Bible? Thank you. But I just all want us to take a moment and just really think about this, because I know, the difference between me being in year 1 and year 2, you probably never recognize me. I didn't have this song to sing before. I didn't have everything I've been through to be able to be this close to God and to share messages like this, or to do ministry at View like I'm able to do now. So I'm going to pray, and Chad's going to sing this song, and I want us to all just take a moment and get alone with God, or just worship. So God, I'm so grateful that you've given us this opportunity to grow closer to you. I pray that this is a moment of change perspective. I pray that the suffering we've all endured, we use for a song for you, God. We used to sing of your great name, to exalt you. We used to declare Psalm 145 over our lives, that you're trustworthy even when it doesn't look like it, that you're faithful through it all, Jesus. Jesus, we believe this, and we see this, and we trust in your name. Amen.
test in your promises.